Hey everyone, welcome back to the Fitness Education Online podcast. Today I'm joined by Dan Williams. Dan is an accredited exercise physiologist and the founder of Range of Motion, which is a fitness business that he's been running in Perth for 20 years. He's also spent the last 8 years mentoring business owners, and he's just launched something new called Gobsmack Consulting, which is a practical customer experience framework built specifically to help you guys, fitness professionals and business, grow. So we're very excited to have him on the show. A big welcome to you, Dan. How are you today?
Bex, I'm great, and I've really been looking forward to our chat. I love talking and sharing ideas with people, so yeah, I'm pumped. Thank you for having me on.
Amazing. Yes, I've also been very excited, especially like I mentioned before we hit record, when I went on your website and saw Britney Spears pop up on your website, I was like, this is going to be a good chat. So I'm very much looking forward to it. I'm sure we'll get into that soon a bit more as well.
Absolutely.
But I'd love for you to just let the listeners know exactly who you are and what it is you do.
Thanks, Bex. Okay. So as you say, I've been running a health and exercise business for the last 20 years. We turned 20 this year. We've somehow survived,
Congrats.
which is cool. Thank you. So I'm an exercise physiologist is my background. As you mentioned, I took my sort of learnings from the first half of that 2 decades, and for the last 8 years or so, have been consulting and mentoring for business owners. A lot of people in the health and fitness space, but a lot of people as well in other industries. You tend to be able to drag things across and benefit from one industry to the other. And I guess those 2 decades of both running a service-based business and helping people who are running service-based businesses brought me to this realization that the businesses that are differentiating themselves are not the ones who just give people a perfectly adequate level of service, right? And that's what most people do. But no one goes home at the end of the day and says, hey, honey, you have to hear about this completely adequate thing that happened to me today.
Yeah.
So actually, can I give you an example of what one of these like jaw-dropping customer experiences could be?
Yeah, I'd love that.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. Now, just for the listeners out there, I did ask Bex permission to ask her this question on a podcast. So, Bex, can I ask what year you were born, please?
Yes, 1996.
Okay, so that makes you 30, right?
Yes, that's right.
All right.
Yep.
Sorry that I've just put that out into the world.
It's okay. No
So,
secrets.
let me give you this example of like jaw-dropping customer experience. There's a company in the UK called Octopus Energy. It's a big energy provider, electricity provider, right?
Yeah.
And they did some research into nostalgia and the sort of nostalgia which is what music is linked to people forming their identities. And what they found is that the music that was at the top of the charts in the year that you turn 14 is where you have that strongest sense of nostalgia, right? So if you were born 30 years ago, the sort of music that you would be pumping out at that time, and you've got these strong emotional connections to, are things like TikTok by Kesha. Yeah, so the old, wake up in the morning feeling like
Yeah.
P. Diddy, right? That's your pump up going out song. Music like I Got a Feeling by the Black Eyed Peas, Empire State of Mind, a bit of Jay-Z, Alicia Keys, right?
Yeah.
In New York, I'm not going to sing, I just did, I apologize. Anyway, what Octopus Energy found was that this is where the strongest sense of nostalgia is. So when you call up their support line, which is the worst possible experience anyone can have, instead of this random like instrumental music stuff, their software matches your phone number with their database, with your date of birth, and it plays you the tunes that you were listening to in the summer that you turned 14,
Wow.
right? So this on-hold experience is special and unique and human, and it makes you feel something. And people actually come off hold with Octopus Energy, and they actually ask to be put back on hold just until Kesha finishes banging out her tunes. So I launched Gobsmack Consulting to create customer experiences, to help businesses, service-based businesses, to create customer experiences that are actually remarkable, right? That people will remark about. So we go into a business, we map out every single touch point that a customer has with that business. And then we use a design framework that we've created to turn what are like plain, boring, ordinary, vanilla moments into these jaw-dropping moments that people are actually going to remember, they're going to talk about. Because ultimately, customers are going to forget what you do, but they're never going to forget how you make them feel. And if you give them these experiences, they will feel something. It will give them a story to tell. And from a business case perspective, they'll come back more often, they'll stay longer, they'll spend more money with your business, and they'll tell their friends. So that's what Gobsmack Consulting does, and that's my sort of journey up to the point we are today.
Yeah, that's so cool. When you named all those songs, I literally could remember certain things that I was doing. Or, for example, with Keisha, I remember getting ready with my friends to go to our school social. That was like the first thing that popped in my head. So the nostalgia is real when you connect it to those songs. So that's cool. I love that.
Yeah, and it makes you feel something, right?
It
like
does,
it gives you an emotion. And in this, increasingly impersonal, digital AI, LLM driven world that we're living in, you're like, dude, this is something that connected with me on an emotional level. And if that happened, if you were a customer of Octopus Energy, you'd be telling all your friends and they'd be signing up with Octopus too.
That's true. That's so smart. I love it. So when you say customer experience, what does that actually mean in a PT or fitness business context? If we could dive into that a little bit more.
Okay, so we basically have two experiences that we can have. So there's what we call a service experience and then a lifetime experience. So the service experience, if you are a hairdresser, is the moment that your customer steps out of their car in the car park, does their thing, steps back into their car at the end. If you're a dentist, from the car park back to the car park. If you're a PT, same thing. Steps out of their car, does their whole PT experience, steps back into the car at the end. So we would call that a service experience. And then you have the lifetime experience. And the lifetime experience is basically 14 different stages from I'm going to start hunting for a business like yours, right through to I'm no longer a customer, I haven't been a customer for 10 years, and yet I'm still getting some sort of experience for this business. So that's the lifetime experience that the customers get. And we can tear down and experience map both of these two experiences to create something pretty remarkable for our clients and customers and members.
Amazing. Oh, cool. I'm keen to dive into that a little bit more because I guess when you think about the experience, not many people are thinking it once they're no longer a client, what that relationship and journey looks like too. So I'm excited to get into that. Before we do, so a lot of PTs probably think they already are delivering a really great experience. In your experience, what are they usually missing, or what are sort of some things that they aren't thinking about that they really need to be?
Okay, I think most PTs, most fitness professionals, and to be honest, most people in this sort of service economy, they are operating in that service economy. So they're actually providing a service and they're delivering an outcome. Yep. So a PT is providing the service of personal training and an outcome of lower weight, bigger biceps, higher deadlift, insert your metric of choice here, right?
Yeah.
And they're providing a service, and it's a good service. Like, it's a really good service, but it's not an experience. It doesn't make people feel something. It doesn't give them a story to tell. And a good sort of indication of whether it is a service or an experience and whether it is remarkable, again, able to be remarked about, is would they take out their phone and take a photo of it to show their friends? Because their friends will never believe what happened if they don't have photographic proof. And that's what we call a snap test. Are they going to snap a photo of this thing? So I think it is a cost of entry to have great service, right? If you're a gym, it is now a cost of entry to be friendly and welcoming and for people to know your name and say hello to you by name when you walk in, and to have hygiene products in the toilets, in the bathrooms, right? These are just the cost of entry now. And people see these as differentiating factors. They're not. This is just a requirement to join the chat. So people are stuck in this service economy. They need to move into the experience economy.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. Cool. So walk us through then the Gobsmack framework. What is sort of the starting point, and what does that journey look like? Okay,
so there are basically six different steps, or 8 different steps that we can go through, right? And the best way to think about these is like a baseball cap. It's like a hat. And a hat can be one size fits all. It's adjustable, right? If you've got a massive head like me, it works. If you've got a tiny head, it still works. You can have one size fits some, or then you can have one size fits one. So you have these 3 different types of experience that you can create. So let's probably start with a one size fits all approach. And this is basically what every single customer, client, member of your business is going to experience. This is what everyone gets. It's still special, but this is what everyone gets. So the first thing you would do is you would map each touch point of your customer experience. And again, if you remember, there's the big picture lifetime experience from they don't even know about you to 10 years after you cease to become a customer. And then you've got the service experience, which is from car park to car park, right? Yeah. So the first thing we would do is sit down and say, what is every single touch point they experience? They get out of the car, they open the door, they walk in the door, they put their bag down, etc., etc. And you could have a 30 to 50 point experience map for just a PT session. So we can get pretty granular with this. We then graph those. We graph each of those touch points and we rate them on a scale of 1 to 10 on an experience rating scale. Okay. Now, the important thing here is that 5 out of 10 is not bad. 5 out of 10 is normal. Okay. So the founder of Airbnb, Brian Chesky, he basically said, a 5-star experience in an Airbnb basically just means you can unlock the door, the plates are clean, and there are nice white sheets on the bed, right? Yeah. And if that's your experience, if you get in an Uber and it doesn't smell like cigarettes and it gets you to where you want to get to, you give it 5 stars. But that's a pretty low barrier to entry. There's nothing there that's going to make you tell your friends. There's no emotional connection that makes you feel something. So we would rate each of these on a scale of 1 to 10. I have never done this exercise with anyone, and they have rated more than a 7 out of 10. So 7 out of 10 is actually very, very, very high. 10 out of 10 is astronomical. I am going to go on the news to tell everyone about this. Okay. So that's step one. We graph each of those touch points. Then in step 2, we identify which of those touch points are what we call pits of experience. So we have the 3 Ps. We have pits, we have plateaus, we have peaks. And your pits are things that are 1, 2, or 3 out of 10. Your plateaus are 4, 5, 6, 7 out of 10, and then 8, 9, and 10 out of 10 would be your peaks. So we identify all the pits, the things that are really bad. I'll give you a really good example of this. So there's an engineer who was working for a major hospital in the US, and he noticed that all these kids in the pediatric ward were having to be sedated before they went into an MRI machine, which is like, as a dad of 2 little girls, is absolutely terrifying and heartbreaking to me. They were having to sedate these kids so they could go and scan their body. So what he did is he redesigned this experience. So this is what we call a pit, right, of experience. Yep. It's a real negative experience for people. He redesigned this and he turned the MRI machines into rockets and into canoes, and he painted the walls with the planets and stars, and in the other room he painted it in a jungle, and there were animals around. And he took something that was a pit, turned it into a peak experience for people, right? And it's exactly the same with the example that I gave you before, those tunes that are pumping through when you call up with Octopus Energy. Right? So we would do that. What are the pits? Let's make these things really good. Then we identify the plateaus. And the plateaus are your sort of forgettable middle, the stuff that has to be done. If you're going to start with a PT, you have to fill out an indemnity form. Yep. It has to be done. How do we make those special? Right? So turning the mundane into the remarkable. Yep. Once we've done that, we improve the plateaus. We make them better. There's a company called Donors Choice, which is a charity, and people can donate money. It can go towards writing equipment, paper and pens and stuff for kids in low socioeconomic areas. And these donations would be made. People would receive an email saying, thank you for your donation. You've impacted the lives of, year 4S, right? And it's a plateau. It's fine. It's great, but no one's going to write home about it. So what they actually did is the class that these things were sent to, the kids then use that paper and pen to handwrite thank you notes to the people who made those donations.
That's cool.
Turning a plateau, something that is menial and pretty boring, into a peak. So once you've done that, you then create the peak experiences. So there are certain times in both the service and the lifetime experience, certain times that are disproportionately important. What is the first experience you have? What is the last experience you have? What experience are you having around those common attrition zones where you often will lose your customers, your clients, your members, any milestones, transitions to gamification. So we're turning pits into peaks, we're turning plateaus into peaks, we're turning peaks into more magnificent peaks for people. And basically we end up with this experience map of mind-blowing experiences that people feel a certain way because of, and the people will tell their friends about. And that's the one size fits all approach. Everyone will get that remarkable customer experience.
Yeah, awesome. That's so cool. I love the concepts and I love those examples. They're awesome. And I can see how much more memorable that experience is going to be. And like you say, you know, they'll tell their friends. That's going to then have that really positive knock-on effect to referrals, and it's just a win-win for everyone. So I love that.
Yeah.
I'd love to get, if you don't mind, do you have any sort of like specific examples for, say, a fitness business that has turned a pit to a peak, a plateau to a peak?
Yeah, so probably the pit to a peak. So there's an exercise physiologist that I was working with, and he did a lot of NDIS work. So a lot of NDIS work, he was working with a client with ASD, autism spectrum disorder, and this kid, 14-year-old kid, was absolutely bonkers about all the Marvel movies, right? Just in love with the Marvel superheroes. But him going into this exercise physiology clinic, into this gym, it was overwhelming for him. A lot of sounds, a lot of smells, a lot of sights, a lot of people he didn't know, and it was quite an overwhelming experience. So what this exercise physiologist did is every Thursday morning when this client would turn up, he was dressed as a different Marvel superhero.
That's so cool.
And his client, who was non-verbal, had no idea when he walked in who was going to be there waiting for him. He didn't know whether he'd be doing bench press with the Hulk, whether he'd be doing sprints with Captain America. And every single time, because there are a lot of Marvel superheroes, right?
Yeah.
Every single time he would turn up, a different Marvel superhero there. And it took something that was a huge source of anxiety for this client into the absolute highlight of his week. And it's probably the most exciting thing that happens to this poor kid in his whole life. So that would be a pit to a peak.
Yep.
And then a plateau to a peak. There's a guy I was working with, and he runs an outdoor boot camp. And normally, you know, it's someone's birthday, you celebrate it, maybe everyone sings happy birthday at the end of the boot camp or whatever. And like, it's fine, but you aren't going to go home and say, hey, honey, people saying happy birthday to me today. There's nothing special. Anyway, so what this guy did is he went to every single antique shop that he could find, and he was searching for something very specific. And he looked and looked and looked, and he finally found this old brass antique ice cream churner. Mm-hmm. He took this home to his garage, he got the spanner out, and he did some work on this, and he basically converted it into an arm erg, into like an arm crank. And if it's someone's birthday, he would drag this big, 100-kilo hunk of metal to the local oval, and one of the stations on the boot camp would be this ice cream churner cum arm erg. So at the start of the boot camp, they'd pour in a litre of milk, a litre of cream, some vanilla essence, and a whole bunch of sugar. And if everyone in that class that day worked hard enough, by the end of that boot camp, there would be a big vat of ice cream, and they'd grab a bowl each and share it to celebrate that person's birthday.
It's so good.
Right. So if a week later someone said to that person, hey, how was your birthday? They'd be like, you would not believe what happened at boot camp. Right. And that's experience marketing. If you provide a good enough experience, and I'm not saying that you don't need to do paid meta ads, and I'm not saying that you don't need to have a referral campaign and to do content marketing and all this other stuff. Like, yeah, cool, I get that. But the best marketing is just being so good they can't ignore you, as Steve Martin said, right? Just to become unignorably good, provide unignorably remarkable experiences. And I think if you do that, you're sort of 80% of the way there with your marketing and client acquisition.
For sure. Well, we know that, word of mouth and referrals are such a huge part of business for fitness professionals and for most people in a service-based industry. So you can see how that is directly going to increase the amount of referrals that you're getting in, because the people that are with you are getting such a good experience. And even people who might not work with you now, if they've had a good experience, like you say, before they even know who you are, to then be able to still have had that experience with you, they're still going to tell people about it. So I can see how important it is, and just how largely it's going to contribute to the success of a business. So yeah, that's cool. That's such cool examples. I love these. For someone who, say, a PT working in a gym, or maybe going online, but they're sort of working solo, they're not a gym owner or someone like that. So maybe their service experience at the moment, they're maybe just following the sort of standard routine of your client comes in, you have a bit of a chat, you do your session, they go home, you check in with them throughout the week. What would you say would be like the best thing that they could just implement like straight away that's going to really improve or make it more of that like remarkable experience like you're talking about from the service side of things?
Okay, I think the first thing to do would be, well, to give yourself a promotion to the customer experience officer in your business, right? So as you know, as PTs, you're wearing 1,000 different hats.
Yeah.
Sorry, apologies. Here's a new hat that you have to wear, right? So I think, and again, we can probably break this down and look at one example in the one size fits all, which is what I just sort of took you through, and maybe a one size fits some and a one size fits one example as well. So for the one size fits all, I would write down all the current touch points and choose one that you're going to make remarkable. Okay, that you're going to make really special. Maybe this is something we can do. Like, are you keen, Bex, to like actually go through and apply this to a touch point in an experience maybe in your business?
Yeah, for sure. Let's do it.
Okay, cool. And I think probably like everyone else can play along at home as we do this. So I know you've got a super successful online business. Are you doing in-person stuff as well, Bex?
No, not at the moment. So all online.
Okay, cool. But it's stuff you've done a bunch of in the past?
Yeah, I've done in person before in the past.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Let's use that example because that's probably something that a lot of people who are listening can be able to relate with. Talk me through like a typical plateau, something that would happen during a PT session. Again, something between stepping out of the car to stepping back into the car. It can be part of the actual exercise experience itself. It can be something before. It can be something after. Something that's in that forgettable middle.
I mean, this is really like leaving me a bit vulnerable with, it's like my conversation and my chat, but I feel like there's probably always that time during the session where you've asked how their weekend was, you've talked about what's going on in their life already, got all the updates on the kids and the things like that, talked about the weather, and then, you kind of get to that point in the session where, maybe we're sort of halfway through, almost towards the end, and they're resting for 2 minutes and we're kind of like, so what else can we talk about?
Okay, cool.
Could that be an example?
I get that completely. So it's this dead time where maybe they've just done a hard session and their muscles are burning and they're catching their breath, and there's catch your breath. We're gonna do some PNF stretching, or we're gonna do some release stuff at the end, and let's just this is a little bit of an awkward chat. Okay. Yeah. So let's take that 2 minute block, and again, it's a plateau, and they're not going to go away and say, wow, that 2 minutes made me feel really valued. It made me feel really special. So the first thing I would do with that 2 minute block is say, what is the story that we want people to tell about that? And that's the first thing. That's the intended story. So the story that we want people to tell about that, if they go home, to make that a story shareable event, maybe they would say, hey, I finished a really hard session. It was super tough. I was catching my breath and something happened that has never happened to me before, and it made me feel ... So how would you want people to feel? Like, what sort of emotions do you reckon, Bex, you would want people to feel in that 2 minutes?
For me personally, I would love for all of my clients to walk away feeling like I really go the extra mile to make them feel cared for, heard, or special, Okay. They're not just a client to me, they're someone I genuinely care about.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. So you want them to feel cared for. This is something where you're trying to sort of slow them down, starting to try and regulate their nervous system a little bit. Maybe you have a different playlist, which is their top chill music, right? And it's just, Jack Johnson, Angus and Julia Stone, just like real chill acoustic type stuff. Yeah. So maybe they finish their last set and you're right, okay, let's just take 2 minutes and let's just talk about what just happened. And you sort of subtly reach around into your back pocket and press play on this playlist, which is Bluetooth to the speakers, right? So they're getting this, their tunes are coming on, starting to slow down. And you can sort of go through and say, okay, let's talk about how what you just did in that session is going to make you better outside the gym, not physically, but at life. So that last set of deadlifts there, we were trying to get to 10 and you got to 8 and I saw this thing pass in front of your eyes and I could tell what your dialogue, your inner voice was like. Tell me what you were saying to yourself at that time, right? And they say, I was saying to myself, this is really hard. I'm not strong enough. I don't think I can lift this. Okay, how could we fix that inner dialogue? How about we say, this is really hard, because you're not going to lie to yourself. You're going to admit that. This is really hard. good. This is why I'm here. This is what's going to make me strong. So you're actually doing something that is helping train their inner voice, train their inner dialogue. Okay, how are we now going to use that outside of here? Okay, well, when my kids, I've just picked them up from school and they're fighting each other in the back seat because my sister looked out my window in the car, right? How can you use this to become a better parent and bring this back to their life?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that's a good example. Like if we take this through to a one size fits some or one size fits one example,
yeah.
A one size fits some, you basically need to create yourself a toolkit. Okay, so I'll give you the example. So there's a restaurant in the US called 11 Madison Park. And this, a few years ago, was rated as the #1 restaurant worldwide. Like absolutely incredible fine dining. But they have a team. Obviously, they have their chef and their sous chefs and all their front desk staff and their waiters, etc. But they have a team, a position called a Dreamweaver. And these Dreamweavers are responsible for watching and listening and having their radar on and their antenna up and looking for opportunities to do something special. Cool. And they've done things like a waiter overheard a group at a table who were talking about this incredible trip they'd had in New York and all the amazing food they'd tried. It was this huge culinary tour of New York City. And he overheard them saying, but you know what? The only thing we haven't had is that dirty New York City hot dog. And they all sort of they're here at a restaurant where they're paying $3,000 for a meal for the table. And all they want is this New York City hot dog. So waiter overheard this, got one of these Dreamweavers, ran down the street, ordered a $2 hot dog from some corner store. And this is ultra prime fine dining restaurant. Ran back to the chef and the chef cut this hot dog into 4 beautifully sized portions, put some sauerkraut and a quenelle of sour cream and mustard on there and brought it out under a big silver cloche and basically said, hey, we didn't want you to leave New York City without the full New York culinary experience. And he put these down and served them up, what effectively amounted to a $2 hot dog. And these people basically said later that is the thing they will take to their deathbed from this trip to New York City was a $2 hot dog. Wow. Not because of how good the food was, because it was a terrible hot dog, right? Yeah. Not because of that, but because of the thought that went into it. So you need to create this toolbox of experience triggers. If this happens, then I do this. If it's someone's birthday, then we pour some sugar into an ice cream churner. Right? If someone gets engaged at our restaurant, this is another thing that 11 Madison Park did. If someone gets engaged at our restaurant, we bring them out a set of beautiful Tiffany & Co. champagne flutes that they can use to toast their engagement. Then at the end of the night, they clean them and they box them up and they give that to them as a parting gift at the end.
That's so cool.
So this is what I call an experience trigger. Someone gets engaged, and an experience toolkit. If they get engaged, then we do this. So for a PT, look at all the things that happen. Someone has uni exams, someone gets engaged, someone has a baby, someone loses a pet, it's someone's birthday, someone is celebrating a religious holiday. For each one of these, that should trigger something, which is not going to be for everyone, but when that thing does happen, that is a special experience that you can give to someone. And it seems like it's not pre-prepared, but it is because of this pattern recognition.
I love the idea of a toolbox, and you can really, for PTs listening, I feel like we all kind of have those sort of avatars that we typically see quite commonly, obviously there's going to be some nuances and differences, but typically, especially if we're, we've sort of got a bit of a niche, we're going to have people that do sort of fit into similar, avatars. So you can really kind of have almost the tools in your toolbox to fit those avatars when, potentially if you've got, beginner clients or, younger females who are coming to the gym for the first time, something that you could do for each of those people that fit their avatar that would make them feel really special. So I love how, I can see how I could really fit that. And then also the experiences side of things too, everyone has a birthday at some point. You've got a lot of people probably getting engaged, having babies, that sort of thing. So it's really cool. It's really, I love how it's just really, like you said, the people in New York, it was the thought behind it. And I feel like that really just comes back to that, right? It's how can we really just really make them feel like we've really thought about them specifically and how we can make them feel special.
Yeah. I think it sort of leads into this one size fits one, right? And this is the ultimate, wow, no one will ever experience this again, because I'm sure that no one will ever again be served a $2 hot dog at 11 Madison Park, right? It's intentional magic. Like if you go to a magic show and you see a magician do something, it is completely magic to you as the observer, but the magician has practiced this 1,000 times and they've created this in this environment for magic to happen. So I think what PTs can do, what any sort of service-based business owner can do, is have a CRM, and obviously like a CRM, a customer relationship manager, is normally what's this person's date of birth, what's their email, what's their address. Cool, yeah, all this stuff is important. You need to know their address, because if you happen to be discussing a book with them and they say they haven't read it, you need to know their address so you can send them this book straight after that session. But all this stuff's important. But you also need to know things like their favorite beer, whether they drink red or white wine, the names of their kids, the birthdays of their kids, just these absolute obscure things that just happen to come up in conversation. Because if these obscure things come up in conversation, you write them down, and then 2 years later, when they're going through a rough patch, you say, hey, I know your comfort food is this type of cheese that you can only buy in this one county in the UK. I actually ordered some, had some imported. I thought it might make your day. It's going to blow their mind. So just have a document where you write down absolutely completely random things about people. And then one day when that person just needs a little bit more love and care and attention than perhaps they're getting from the rest of the world, you can reach out and say, hey, I know this book meant a lot to you when you were a kid and you haven't read it for 30 years, but here's The Very Hungry Caterpillar, just to remind you of simpler times, right? Just because it's a book that they mentioned in a throwaway statement 2 years ago. So create an environment for intentional magic, unplanned things, but knowing so much about your people that you can pull them out and put on a magic show that absolutely blows them away.
Yeah, this is such an important conversation because we are in the people business, right? So it's like, yes, you know, we can teach anyone squats, deadlifts, you know, we can get good results for people in terms of fat loss or muscle gain and those sorts of things. They kind of know that that's what they're coming in to achieve with you, but it's like, it's how you make them feel when that's the reason why they're going to stay with you and why they're going to talk to everyone about you. So it's really cool. With the framework that you were speaking about and talking about, you know, once they're no longer a client and then 10 years down the track. So what does that look like? Is that more just around like, because we've made them feel so amazing that they're still going to be remembering it 10 years down the track? Or is there anything specific that you kind of get people to put in place to?
No, I think you should still be giving them an experience. Most businesses, unfortunately, not only start ignoring their customers when they leave, but there's this bad taste, this air of sort of, I'm blaming you for leaving my business. I'm angry at you because you've left my business. And we got to remember that they may come back. We may be reactivating those people in the future. Even if not, they will definitely tell their friends about an experience that they continue to get. And if their friend one day says, hey, do you know any good PTs? Well, actually, yes, right? Yeah. So there's a company called Chewy, and they sell dog food. Like, it's just an online dog food brand, which sounds pretty vanilla and boring. But what they do, if someone's dog passes away and they basically have to call up or they have to email and say, hey, I need to cancel my subscription because unfortunately our golden retriever passed away last week, they will send a handwritten card from the CEO of this company and a bouquet of flowers to say, hey, we're so sorry. This is one of the most horrible things that can happen to a human. Here's a bouquet of flowers, a handwritten letter, and we've printed up a special little dog tag just with your dog's name and the years that they were alive, just for you to put on their grave when you bury them. Right? And
it makes me emotional. That's so sweet.
Yeah. And that's exactly it. It makes you emotional because they are intending to create a certain emotion in people. Because, again, people will never forget what you do. But they'll never remember what you do, but they will always remember how you make them feel. So how do you make that departure process? Hey, I don't want to do PT with you anymore. Okay, if you ever need help in the future, let me know. See you later. How do you turn that into an actual moment? And that is the most genuine of moments, because at that point, you're not trying to get anything out of them. All the moments leading up to that, they're like, oh, maybe they're just trying to make a sale. Maybe they're just trying to retain me as a client. But there's no ulterior motive to this other than just being a nice person. And that's what the world needs, right?
Yeah,
Like AI is
definitely.
taking over. We just need nice people who are kind to each other in offline, analog, non-replicable, non-scalable ways. So sending a bouquet of flowers from a major international dog food company and a handwritten card and a little dog tag can mean the world to someone. And then maybe on the anniversary of them losing that dog each year, a bouquet of flowers gets delivered to their door. And that happens for the next 10 years. And even though they will never give $1 to that company again, the goodwill that comes from that and the pulling on the heart that comes from that is worth more than any marketing dollar you could send Mark Zuckerberg's way.
Yeah, definitely. And just on that example specifically, a lot of these families are probably going to get another dog, or they're going to know people that are getting new dogs. So they're going to be the first company that they're going to refer them to for getting their dog food. So
Yeah.
even though it might sound like a really large a large cost to be doing that to so many people, it's like, even from the business side of things, that's going to, the return on that's going to be huge. But the emotional side of that is just as important. So
It's huge, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's sometimes a question we get is there a business case for customer experience? If you're going to be spending money on this, I mean, I personally have a weekly intentional magic. This is this one size fits one budget. So every week, and it's only $25, right? This is like, I'm not blowing the bank on this, but I have $25 automatically being transferred from my business account into what's called my intentional magic account. It's a separate bank account. And every Friday, I devote half an hour and $25 to trying to create individualized intentional magic for my clients, right? And now it doesn't mean I need to spend money on them. I had a client last week who was sick. So I wrote her a little postcard and I said, hey, when I was a kid and I had a cough, Dad used to make me like this honey and lemon drink. I'm sorry, I can't send that through the mail and I'm not going to bring it over because you're contagious. However, here are 2 scratch and sniff stickers. And I put a little honey scented scratch and sniff sticker and a little lemon scented scratch and sniff sticker. So this postcard arrived and they were feeling like junk, they were feeling sick, and they could scratch and sniff this. They became not a customer or a client or a user, but an actual participant. They became a participant in this experience. And if they're participating, they're actually becoming part of this. I had another client who's going on holiday with his family. They've got 3 boys. One is like 3 weeks old. They were going away for a bit of a post-baby moon to a nice hotel. And the thing that the 2 older sons were looking forward to most was playing in the pool. So this was last weekend. This family turned up at this beautiful 5-star resort here in Perth, and waiting in their room wrapped up was this present addressed to the 3 boys, and inside were a whole bunch of pool toys. And they opened this up and I said, hey boys, I know you've been looking forward to using the pool. Here are some toys you can play with to give mum and dad a break while they sip a couple of cocktails.
I love that.
So just these, and I will never do that again. I will never send someone a postcard with scratch and sniff stickers. I'll never send someone pool toys to a fancy hotel. But it makes people feel, it makes people take photos, share it with their friends and talk, and it makes people feel something.
Yeah, that's cool. But that's why it's so special, right? Because it's specific to that person and what they're going through. And it also shows that you've listened and you've taken that interest and you've gone that extra step, even though it's not, like a couple stickers, it doesn't seem like a big deal, but to that person, it is, because you've been listening and you care. So yeah, it's so nice.
That's the stuff that is hard to scale. And look, like in this AI, LLM future that we're now living in, I think given a long enough timeline, even these heart-shaped things that we do are going to be automated. And I think, again, if the future is long enough, all of this will be done for us. But in the short to medium term where we are living now, AI is basically a technology that allows for near infinite systemization, near infinite scalability, and it's turning all this stuff that was expensive and difficult and time consuming into stuff that is cheap, easy and instantaneous.
Yeah.
right? So to survive in this AI age as fitness professionals, we need to do the things that AI can't. And if AI is basically a machine for infinite scalability, we need to do things that don't scale. So if we can do unscalable things, that becomes a premium, and that's what keep people coming back, doing the unscalable for people instead of outsourcing this to Gemini or ChatGPT or Claude.
Yeah, it's almost like the opposite of so much business advice, which is like scale, scale, scale. It's like, actually, let's do the unscalable, which I
Yeah.
love. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
and I
great.
think because everyone is trying to turn it into a commodity. Like everyone's trying to turn fitness into a commodity. You have 24-hour gyms that you pay $9 a week for, and every single one is exactly the same. There's a cafe that I go to, my favorite cafe, right? And this, I guess, is the difference between a commodity and a product and a service, which is what most PTs are doing, and an experience. So I was talking to the barista at this cafe a few months ago. She was asking me what we were up to, how the girls were. And I said, oh, yeah, we just had Halloween. We dressed up as characters from Frozen, right? So we had Elsa and Anna, my little girls. My wife was Sven, I think his name is, the reindeer. And I was obviously Olaf, this massive snowman. And we're walking around, like knocking on people's doors. And the barista was like, oh, cool, that's amazing. That's great. Cool, okay. Coffee is a commodity. It's just a coffee bean. You can get them anywhere. It's a commodity. It costs what it costs. If you grind that up, you put it in a bag, you slap a logo on it, it becomes a product. If you go to a cafe and someone serves you that coffee, it becomes a service. But what happened, I took Lucy, our little girl, to this cafe. She ordered a baby chino. And it was the barista there who 6 months before I had said, yep, we dressed up as Frozen. And we went and sat down, and the barista brought her baby chino over and put it down. And there on the top of her baby chino in perfect latte art was Olaf the snowman.
Oh my gosh, that's so cool. 6 months
And
later.
6 months later. And her face lit up, my face lit up, like we both lost it. And we felt something. We felt important. We felt cared for. She had never before and will never again do Olaf the snowman in latte art on the top of a 3-year-old's baby chino. And because of that, I'm now telling you this story. And if you lived in Perth, I would recommend you go to this cafe because they're absolute rock stars and they do cool things for people. So this is, to your point, people are trying to commodify things. They're trying to scale everything. And that's the standard business advice, right? But if everyone else is zigging, you should zag. And if everyone else is trying to make things easy and replicable and Control C, Control V, you should go the opposite way because the more you scale things, the more the cost comes down to zero, the less people can pay you, the less valuable your service is, the more people you need to run a business that supports your life. So go the other way. Zig when everyone else is zagging and do stuff that is unscalable and give people experiences that make them feel something, that give them a story to tell.
So powerful. I also think with, like, to your point around AI and everything, but things becoming less time consuming, cheaper, all that sort of thing. It's like really we have more time than ever really in business because so many of these things are now automated. Things that would have taken us days or weeks are now taking us literally minutes. And so it's like, why not put that time and energy that we would have been doing that stuff to actually creating these experiences and doing the unscalable? So
beautifully said. Yeah,
we
I couldn't agree more.
don't have any excuse really to not be doing this.
Yeah. And it just takes a little bit of imagination, a little bit of creativity. I think where people struggle is coming up with these ideas like, okay, how do I make this a special thing? So it would be, all right, what does a 5-star version of this look like?
Yeah.
And again, this is an exercise that Brian Chesky, one of the founders of Airbnb, recommends. What would a 5-star version of this experience look like? And you write that down and you go, cool, wow, 5-star, that's awesome. What if we were to make it 6-star? What about 7, 8, 9, 10? And 10 is like completely absurd. It involves flying into space and having like an elephant that you ride to the gym. It's absurd. But then you can take elements of that and go, well, actually, we could probably do an 8. Right?
Yeah.
So that's the 10-star thought experiment. And then how can you benchmark from other industries as well? So instead of saying, I need to look at what the best PTs are doing for how they deliver their programs in an online space, you say, okay, well, let's not look in this industry. Let's look in other industries and benchmark from other spaces, right? If you're trying to make the process of walking through a door into a gym more experiential, you don't look to what the best gyms are doing. You look to what the Ritz-Carlton is doing or to what Crown is doing. You look towards the absolute industry leaders in these spaces and steal from them instead of stealing from your competition, because otherwise, again, everyone becomes a commodity. There's no point of difference. And everyone is fighting in this red ocean where there's blood in the water because you're just trying to be the best instead of trying to be different. You either have to be 10 times better or you need to be different, and it's easier to be different than it is to be 10 times better.
That's so good. It's so true. It's like you can look at these different elements of what you want your experience to look like, and then, you know, look at what these other brands or businesses in different industries who are doing it best, how they do it, and then almost like work back from there to how it can apply to your business. Yeah. So good. Oh, so good. There's so much good, tangible stuff in this episode that, I think people just need to re-listen, write down some notes, start doing this like bit of an audit and look at what that 10-star experience looks like, and then work back from there. So much good stuff. Before we finish up, Dan, is there anything else from a more practical perspective that you wanted to chat about or leave the listeners with?
Look, I think we're in a hard industry, right? I've been in it for 2 decades. I'm still wondering when it's going to get easy. It's a hard space to be in. It's a grind. But like, man, we're in such a privileged position to be able to give people something that they're not getting anywhere else. And I think it's a responsibility of the industry to move beyond service and move into experiences. And people are craving this, man. Like, people are just craving like doing the gardening and getting dirt under their nails and playing their parents' old Beatles records that are scratchy and they skip and stuff, just to feel something. And you've got this movement towards Gen Zs now who don't want smartphones, and they're using the same Nokia 3310 that I used when I was at school, right? And man, like we just have such an opportunity to make people feel. And yes, it's great for business, but other than that, it's good for the world. And the world needs more people like that who can light up the people that they are working with, who will then light up more of the world as a result. So that would be my big takeaway. Just make people feel things. You get to choose how you make people feel. Be intentional about designing this. And it may only make your little corner of the world a better place, but it will make part of the world a better place.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you can see how there's just such a beautiful knock-on effect from that, especially with your clients. You know, if you're making them feel something, they're going to go home and spread that emotion or, you know, that positive feeling that they are with their family. And then their kids are going to go to school and they're going to do the same thing. So that's, just such a beautiful butterfly effect that, like you say, we are in such an awesome opportunity to be able to do that. So, I love that so much. Well, before we wrap up, Dan, please let everyone know where they can find you, where they can learn more about everything that you're doing with Gobsmack and your other businesses as well, and if they want to reach out to you, how they can do that. Okay, cool. So probably the best place, if you're interested, on Instagram would be Gobsmack Consulting. So type that in. I post a bunch of stories like some of the ones I've been sharing today, just to give people a bit of inspo for how they can put incredible gobsmacking, jaw-dropping customer experience into their own business. I've actually created also for you guys, Bex, a landing page on the website. If people go to gobsmack.com.au/FEO, Fitness Education Online, FEO, I've got some information on there, links to the social media and all that jazz, but also part of our design framework. So I've put together like a 75-page PDF that all your listeners can download for free. So that is free, easy download on there, just to go through some of the steps, the reasoning, the processes behind this, because I realize this is a pretty big thing and we've tried to give some examples and talk through frameworks, but it's tricky in an audio format or in a video format. So if people are interested in that, head to gobsmack.com.au/FEO, and there's a bunch of free stuff there that hopefully will be of use to some of you guys out there. Oh, 100% it will be. I'll definitely be downloading that after I get off this call. But thank you so much for doing that, Dan, for our audience. It's really, really awesome. And we'll add all those things in the show notes. So appreciate that so much. And thank you so much for your time. It's been such a great chat. Thanks so much, Bex. I really appreciate your time too. And I just love talking and sharing ideas. So I really appreciate it. Thank you.